Hello, podcast listeners. I am thrilled to have Dr. Amy Cook on the podcast today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really happy you're here because this is such a great topic to be talking about. As many listeners might know, Amy is the creator of the Playway, a wonderful framework used to help pet parents drop in, connect, and play with their dogs. And one might think that they don't need help learning how to play with their dog, but trust me, as I've been recently attended Dr. Cook's webinar, and I've been trying the framework with my senior dog right now and filming myself. You do actually need a little help learning how to play with your dog.
You do. It's true.
Isn't it amazing?
I mean, it's one of these things where some of us might feel like we can just do that. And then we try and find out it's not quite as straightforward as all of that. And then I think others of us feel a little like, God, I don't know how to play with a dog like this. I don't know what I'm doing. I can't do this at all. And to both of those, viewpoints, I would say play is natural in us. We were all children. We are a playful species. We can do it. I think sometimes it atrophies, or sometimes we just get self-conscious. We're not sure how to break through. But I do believe we all can find our playful side with a little bit of coaching or just a little bit of, inspiration to get there.
Yeah. And speaking of that atrophy, like how did this come about? Like, why was it so important to you to create the Playway and to teach humans how to drop in with their dogs in this capacity?
It's interesting. I don't think it was like that. I didn't come at it from, I'm going to create this thing that would really solve this need or this hole that I see. What really happened was that I started incorporating play through just inspiration of the people around me, and just being like, I think maybe we could try lightening it up just because that's a good, experience to have. And I was quite astonished what it did. And it inspired me to keep maybe delving into this and saying, is there something to this? Is there some way I can develop this further? Can I explain it better? Can I find more aspects of it in people? Will that matter? Maybe it doesn't matter, right? And I just kept getting more and more amazed at what it was doing for the teams I was adding pieces of it too. And so I started saying, well, okay, we're going to keep going. We're going to keep adding more and more. We're going to keep really trying to see, what we can turn this into. It was a results-based, or I looked at what was happening, and it inspired me to keep going. I didn't really have the whole idea at the onset, not at all.
And what were some of the positives or like the great side effects that you first noticed with your teams?
Yeah, first, I started to see that, people who have dogs with behavior issues, which are the people who are most coming to me, it's not usually just because I'd like to learn to play. It's usually people trying to solve some sort of problem, or they've come to me with, a behavior issue, right? And in those teams, so much of the time, the relationship between them and their dog is strained, right? And I use relationship in very broad terms. I just mean how people conceive of interacting with their dog, or their feelings of being with their dog are often strained. It's hard to have a dog with behavior problems. You focus on the problems a lot. You forget what you might really like about your dog. You are thinking about, the next walk you have to take, and, oh God, do I need to do this behavior? How much training do I have to do? And it's embarrassing a lot of times to have a dog who's acting out, who has poor leash, reactivity, behaviors. You're embarrassed or you're worried. And I think that can really affect just your experience with your friend, just how much you love your dog, or how you get to experience that friendship. And with that strained, I think that a lot of times the commitment can get, questioned. The, do I want to do this, can get questioned. The, do I enjoy what am I doing? Why am I doing all this work? And so I found that just a place to enjoy your dog, a place to play, and have it be expectation-free space. We're not trying to do anything in particular. I don't need you to act a certain way. This isn't about training you to be anything more or less than anything else. It's just for us to goof around and play and remember why we enjoy each other. I feel like that gives people, more ability to go through some of the harder stuff, like it's a way to reinvigorate the reason why you love you like your dog in the first place, right? And then from there, I was starting to see that there were actual behavioral changes coming, just from that alone, just from playing alone. I was starting to see that behavior was changing in the dog. So it works twofold, I think, for teams. Help the human half remember and enjoy the parts of their dog they really love, and still it helps their dog directly change the behaviors that are so distressing in the first place.
I love that. It reminds me of the research done by the John Gottman Institute, where, I don't know if you're familiar with this, where it's like, if you have one negative interaction with someone, whether it's a loved one, friend, colleague, whatever, you need 7 positive interactions to have, to basically like fill up that trust account, that friendship cup, that relationship cup, right?
Right.
And like you said, when you have a dog that you're struggling to be with, you're living with a dog with behavior concerns, being able to fill up that cup and like remind yourself like why you guys are friends. Like, I love that you're using the word friend. It's like very, very lovely and light. And you said before we were recording, like, gosh, like we just want to laugh with our friends, right? Like it's that is so important, instead of always focusing on all the little things that you're talking about, right? Like making sure you have enough treats before the walk, like gearing up emotionally to make sure that you're hyper vigilant on the walk, like all these things, right? That become so exhausting.
And the stuff they don't want to express always, which is, I wasn't trying to do this when I got a dog. I just wanted to get a dog. Like, I don't want to be a behavior specialist. I mean, I'm doing my level best, but wow, this is a wake up call. Like, I didn't, and I get that. And I honor that. Most people just are getting a pet and they just, have an idea, maybe sometimes it's too romantic of an idea, but mostly they're willing to do a basic amount of work, and then it gets really hard. Right. And also I use that analogy, and it's, it's that anyone we have to live with, any close relationship, we're having to also experience a lot of the annoyance. You're partnered up, and your partner is also annoying. As much as you love them, they leave socks somewhere, or they don't do the dishes when you like them done, or all those kind of things, right? And in those relationships, we have repair experiences built in. We have to spend enough time to remember why we love each other. We have to do, and in some relationships, some adult activities that we do. And those things are reparative. Those things rebuild that bond. And I think that there's room for really employing that when it comes to a dog-human relationship that is under a lot of stress, because repairing that and remembering why you think that dog is awesome can go a long way toward reinvigorating you to put in the work to do the change it takes. That's where it comes from. It comes from our commitment to them. It comes from our, understanding that they're not giving us a hard time. They're having one. When we build our sympathy toward them, that's all well and good. And I think playing with them serves to give it another element, an element of just laughing and finding them ridiculous. And like when you laugh with somebody else, I mean, that's it's a very chemical experience. It really changes how you respond to them. So, I mean, the more, the better. I don't think you can laugh with or enjoy someone too much. Like, I don't think there's really a downside to that, right?
Seriously.
Right? Can you? I mean, I don't know.
There's no fallout from that. I'm not aware of.
I don't think you can. I mean, I don't know, but yeah.
It's interesting because I'm thinking about, we had Emily Nagoski who wrote Burnout. And one of the 7 ways to unlock the stress cycle, one of them is, through her research, is laughing.
That's
and it's
right.
Like, you just can't get enough of that. And it's, I think about me with my dog, and filming, and, I've been doing a lot of video this week with him and last week. And gosh, it's so uncomfortable for me. I am such, like, speaking of, like, it's so uncomfortable for me to just drop in and play and laugh, right? Like I'm a serious woman, East Coast, type A, like high drive. And so it's interesting. I think about how often, because that's the way that I am, how I haven't assigned my clients to drop in, because I haven't, like, seen the, like, I don't value that as much, right?
Yeah, I
Even though I
understand.
know it's so important,
Absolutely.
I'm like, no, I got to give them the tools, the
The
behavior modification,
homework, the skills.
the homework,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And I'm really reflecting this past year, going like, this year and last year, like, wow, like, Marissa, you got to play a little bit more in addition to helping your clients, right? Because this is heavy, like you're saying.
It's heavy, and it's also about the framework, the mindset that we're taking. Okay, so let's say, when it's your client's dog, you are functionally, if you will, I mean, it's not a perfect analogy, but functionally their elementary school teacher. The parent brought their kid, and I know dogs aren't children, just go with me in the analogy, to the teacher, to the elementary school teacher. And your job as that teacher might be to teach math. It might be to, impart skills, right? But you actually, with your dog, have many roles. You are part teacher in the way that parents are part teacher. But parents are also many other things, right?
Yeah.
These are social relationships fundamentally. And if you spend a whole lot of time around a toddler or a young child, certainly you're teaching stuff. You are, just because you live together and you're crafting behavior. But it is a relationship based so much on patience, acceptance, real listening, enjoyment of each other, and expressing that you just enjoy each other, not that you are their teacher. When you are parent, you are not always interfacing as teacher. You have a lot of roles, a lot of interfaces, right? And I think that as an analogy, it's a great place to explore, because of course, sometimes I'm teaching my dogs. Of course, I'm saying, no, don't do that. Don't be in the trash. Hey, come over here, wait at the door. Of course, I'm teaching my dogs, but we're also living together. And while I don't expect to be the playmate of my clients' dogs, I am the teacher of that system with my own dogs. I'm not just their teacher. And so I want to teach pet parents to be able to inhabit a lot of different roles. You are not just their teacher. You also enjoy them, just like we do with children. And the benefits of it, I mean, it would have been just kind of a half idea if it were just that. But once I employed it and saw what it did, I started to say, well, okay, this is valid. This isn't just some like idea of like, you should play with your dogs. It's like, oh, this really has a strong effect all over the place. And it does with children as well. The more we listen, connect, are patient, are expectation free when we play. We don't tell them how to play. We just go into the imagination space and accept being silly just for the sake of silliness. It enriches their experience and our relationship with them. And so I think that while you not exploring it as a trainer as much it's not unreasonable in any way. Of course, you're their teacher. Finding that place with your own relationship with your dog can teach you a lot. Then you can ask your clients to do that with their dogs, right? You're still their teacher, but their own relationship is really enriched by the silliness. And that starts with you really exploring it and believing it for yourself. Because you can't just take my word for it. You can't just say, well, Amy says that play is really great, so I'll teach it to my clients. I need you as the trainer, as the dog owner yourself, to see why this is this amazing. And to feel it. Because once you feel what's happening when you do that, it's so much easier to help someone else feel the same. And it's not an easy road. If we're used to being serious, or if we're used to being teachery, or if we're not used to children, or any other number of blocks that have come up in our adulthood. It's been a long time since we were 5 and playing Candyland, right? Those things are very real things to try to overcome. And I'm usually of the life opinion, and this is not about dogs, I'm usually of the just basic opinion in myself that if I find something really hard, or if I find something a little emotionally hard, like I kind of resist this a bit. I don't know if I want to do this. I'm not really feeling this. It has been my life experience, and it is now my life goal to run headlong right into that, because that's a thing I've ignored. That's a thing I've protected against or defended against, or that's a thing that I've atrophied. And in there are really where my lessons are, because I'm already good at a bunch of stuff I'm already good at. And I don't know that there's a lot more life lesson in there, but the thing I'm studiously not doing very well or don't want to maybe challenge, probably I'm going to get something I can't predict out of that. That's going to change how right. So when you see something that you feel like you don't do well, or you're a little intimidated by, run headlong into it and smack hard right into that wall. Just do it, because there's something for you there, whatever that is for you, whether it's play or not, whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, it is definitely play right now for sure. And there's like certain conditions when I'm comfortable, certain conditions when I'm uncomfortable. I have found that being like implementing the play way with my dog, I am so present. It reminds me of like when I used to rock climb all the time. You have to be present, right? Because there's like high risk.
Sure.
And so when I'm with Sully, I've got the video just because I want to review afterwards, and I want to see what I'm missing from him and all of that. And I'm really present, and I'm like, oh, okay, don't repeat yourself, right? Amy said to not be as repetitive, right? And so I'm really present, and it feels so good to be in the moment in that way. What another great skill for me. And the more I am in the moment, the more Sully then drops in with me, right? So it's just this beautiful dance.
Entirely true. And I find that people, when they stop being so self-conscious about it, and that's a process. Like I don't blame anyone for being self-conscious. One, there's a camera. Two, you're thinking about what I said. So you're trying to be conscious of your choices and what you're doing. But when that starts to get a little more natural or a little more automatic, or when you start to find your way of doing it, you are no longer thinking about yourself. You're listening to your partner, and listening is the core essence of this, because they're telling us a lot of stuff, or they're giving us feedback around whether they liked that game. And if you're on your instructions and thinking, I do this 3 times, and then I do a play about, and then I try to do this, I try to get him to play, you're not actually watching about what they're doing. If you're listening, you just float an idea like for example, what you and I are doing now, you're listening to what I'm saying, not pre-planning. You might be thinking, of course, partly of what you'd also like to say, but you are listening to what I'm saying. You're responding to me. We have this naturally. We do this. We can respond to each other and listen. We just aren't used to doing it across species. We aren't used to doing it with our dogs. And once we kind of let some of that go, get unself-conscious, and have an authentic back and forth where you're listening a lot rather than intending to speak, your partner feels it. A social animal feels when you're speaking, when you're the only one speaking. and the social animal feels when there's responding and room for them. And it's really hard to have an authentic connection, even if it's just for a minute or two, with someone who isn't listening to you. And so if there's anything people should take away, it's that seek to talk less and to listen more, even if that also doesn't work and it's awkward because your dog isn't sure how to say anything yet. They're not used to really maybe being listened to yet. It still might be awkward. It won't be magic. But if you're really not sure where to start by watching and listening, and let that guide you to something else, rather than talking a lot to let that guide you. That would be one way over a strange moment or a hump.
Yeah. And it reminds me of when you had made a comment about like that there is oftentimes you'll see dogs and humans, right? Like default to affection. And I have definitely noticed that with Sully, right? Where he's like a little unsure, like he might be looking away. So then I stop for a second, and then he looks back at me, I re-engage with him. And then he just sort of walks in and leans his head on me as if like, ooh, this is normal. Like it's normal for me to come in and for you to like scratch under my chin. I'm not quite sure what to do right now. Right. There might be like a displacement behavior in there somewhere. And so he's just a little confused. And I thought that was, just like we're both used to affection. And so let's just lean into a behavior that makes sense for both of us as we're trying this weird new thing.
I don't know what you're doing, Mom. I don't know what you're doing, lady.
Yeah.
You also seem kind of awkward at it. You don't know what you're doing either. I'm sure they're not thinking all those things, but like, I don't know what to make of this picture. I'm not sure what my response is, what you expect from me as a response. I'm used to you training me, telling me what to do. So I'm trying to fill in this blank here because I don't know what this is. And you know what? Affection works. It's like a dog when you're training them something new and they start throwing a sit at you. They're saying, I don't know what you're asking. You like this though. I sit and it seems to work a lot. Is this possibly something I can suggest that, when we're playing awkwardly, your dog often says, how about we just do what you already like? Can I just change the subject to something that we both do well?
Change the subject.
Can I just change the subject? I always call it a subject change, right? When a dog grabs a toy, it's very similar. It's like, can I change the subject to this? Because this one I understand and this one I enjoy. And I usually say, collaborate with that. Take that feedback, collaborate with it. Of course, give them the affection they just asked for. And think of it as a yes and. Oh, yes, I will take this suggestion. And also, hey, how about this suggestion? It's a way to blend yourself from what got suggested to not reject what your dog said or your partner said. Take it in, go for it, and then take it as feedback. Like, okay, my dog doesn't know. That's reasonable because I don't know either. I don't know what I'm doing either. So it's reasonable that my dog doesn't know what to be doing. But we can morph that. We can accept that and slowly circle it around and shift it to something else. And it happens for a long time that they might offer what you've done before. And some of that is just out of not being sure. And some of it I feel comes from being nervous about this new change. Like, I don't know what this is. So I'm going to maybe appease this. I'm going to lick your face a lot because I don't know what you're doing. So can I just lick your face and kind of collaboratively end this? Because I'm really unsure. Right.
I love the language you use. It's so good.
I mean, I really want to speak about them respectfully, right? Because we're the ones who don't know what's going on. We're the ones who are blundering into dog play and they're like, oh God, I don't. Yeah. So I don't want to make this more their fault. I want to reflect in my language an ongoing attempt to understand that they are doing the best with what we gave them and what we're offering. They're doing their level best to figure this out. And so, a shift to thinking about that respectfully, a shift to saying, I'm the newbie here, you too, but I'm the one trying to play in your language and I don't know what I'm doing. So thank you, dog, for trying your best to just work with this. And they can lick our faces a whole lot and kind of want it to be over. And so considering that it can be difficult on them as well as us, but like, I'm okay with it being difficult on us because we're the people with the thumbs and the plans and we bought in and we're, when it's difficult on the dog, I want to say, hey, like, I don't want to make this hard. So I want people to set a timer of like 1, maybe 2 minutes at most and stop. So that a dog is not endlessly being asked to do something so hard and you're stuck in this awkward loop of none of us know what to do. You know what? The timer went off. That was a minute. Thank you for your time. I'm going to go away, look at the video and think about this again and not let you be, taking too much for the team while I figure this out. Because it's awkward. It's definitely awkward.
Yeah. I love that you're also pulling in like, conspecific interactions and movements and behaviors. Right. And so can you speak a little bit about that? Because I have noticed that Sully does like one of them. Like if I'm walking, if I'm crawling in parallel with him and sort of like using my body a little bit very gently because he's 13. He really enjoys that. And so can you speak to, I love that you have pulled in, obviously, right?
Right.
What other dogs are doing with other dogs.
Yeah. I think that dogs already play. Obviously not all of them are fantastic at it. Many of them haven't in years, or, they tried in puppyhood and then in adulthood, they didn't have those experiences, but they speak dog. And at least for the most part, we can start there. And as humans, we're going to come at this as monkeys. We're coming at this as primates. We're coming at this as at best playing with people. and that isn't the same style. We're very handsy. We're very sit on our butt and use our hands a lot. And certainly as adult humans, we're sitting on our butts. We're not really kids anymore, and it can be hard to roll around. But what dogs tend to like better is things that are on all fours and play partners that don't have hands. And I don't mean that to be an absolute. Of course you use your hands in play, but we tend to overemphasize that and say, that's all I got. And dogs can take some of that, but I think it's honoring of your partner to say, what language do you speak? Can I try? So being on all fours to the extent of your physical ability, you can do that on a bed as well. And doing things like a shoulder check, a bit of a hip check, like a silly, a collaborative mock sort of, boom, I got you. Even bumping, I like to bump with my head at the top of my head, as dogs do. I try my best to pull what I see dogs doing and approximate it. I'm not really trying to act exactly like a dog. It's not a full acting job, but you grab what dogs tend to do and say, does this make sense to you? Is this closer? Like, can you interpret my behavior a little better because I'm a little closer to what dogs do? Just to give them a sense of, oh, I think she's playing. Is that what she's doing? Give them something. And if we sit there planted on our butts and mostly push around with our hands, what ends up happening is that we're a little too provocative, we're a little too pushy, and it encourages us to face frontally and to look at and to what looks like predate. We're being the predator, the pushy one here when you do this into the camera and I'm like, I'm going to get you. Certainly some dogs like that, but many of them are like, whoa, I don't know if that's play, and it can get them quite agitated and quite stimulated, and they can come in a little too hot. Harder for us to take them because we can't really play like that as people. So doing things that are a little more like how dogs negotiate with dogs. I have a whole lecture in my class of just a long string of videos of dogs who have a power differential negotiating play. And I think that's particularly apt because we have a power differential. One, we can stand, and so we're bigger than them. Two, we are teacher. We have all the power. We can stop, we can end this, we can decide it isn't going to happen. And so when you watch dogs who have power differentials play, you can pick up on what they do to reassure the one with less power that it's okay to do some of these things. So if you watch really big dogs with really tiny dogs, that's a power differential. If you watch older dogs with young babies who don't know how to do this yet, that's a power differential. And you'll watch the older or bigger dogs self-handicapping, falling over, rolling over, exposing their neck, moving in slow motion so that it's not so intense. And we can do some of that. We can roll over if it's safe for that dog and human team. We can move in slow motion, like push them away, but we don't really mean it. We're being exaggerated. Exaggeration is a way we advertise our safety. We do that with children, and dogs do that with older dogs do that with puppies. And big dogs can do that with small, so that it's not, so we're taking down some of that intimidation factor. Putting ourselves lower, rolling over, being on our backs, rolling and peeking over our shoulder, like, come get me, you should come get me. Dogs do that all the time. They roll over, but they're still looking to say, come on, you have access to my body. You can walk on me. You can, hey, small dog, you can get up on my body and pretend you're the big bad, bad predator biting at my neck, right? I find the more we can do that, or do something that seems a little like that, it can be more communicative to a dog who's just not sure what they're allowed to do. And, we spend a lot of time telling dogs what to do with our bodies, as in, don't mouth me, don't put your feet on me, don't jump on me, don't initiate to my body. Yeah. We need those boundaries for safety and for manners and all that. And so doing behaviors in play that say, hey, it's this time, it's okay. Right now, right here, it's okay that you have access to my body. It's okay to put your feet on me. That opens the door. So acting a bit like a dog, it advertises that we're in that space and not in the training space of don't touch me, don't do those things, right? It gives them a context for something new. That would be hard to achieve if you weren't trying to act a little bit like a dog.
And It's not like, I know that a lot of folks, when they're thinking about the play way, specifically behavior consultants and trainers, right? They're thinking, okay, so are we using play as a reinforcer for something? Or are we trying to create a positive association? Like every time a scary trigger comes out, then we start playing. And I've heard you say like, no, that's not what this is about, right? And so would you say that how you're using it as a therapeutic approach is that it is really the reparative, it's not, it repairs what's going on within the relationship between the team, or are you using it another way as a therapeutic approach? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And yes, to both of your suspicions there. When I say that it's not in place of where the cookie or the toy goes in operant conditioning, or where the cookie or the toy goes in classical, I do not mean to say that I don't think operant or classical are happening. Of course, they're happening. They're happening all the time. Always, always, always.
Yep.
When I say that, it's to tell the person who is conducting this that I don't want it to exist in time in the place where those would go. So I don't want you to cue or get a behavior and then play in order to strengthen it. And I don't want you to see a trigger or have one or place one or whatever, and then attempt to play to make an association to the presence of that trigger or the appearance of that trigger. I don't want you to do that structure. And there's a couple of reasons, but the easy low-hanging fruit reason is that you won't get play then. That's not where a dog will feel like they can. You can't get play because you asked for it immediately. It doesn't just come up because you cued it. So if you were trying to do it playing around your trigger, you would often fail because your play wouldn't have happened in that timing anyway. But people will attempt to a lot. And I wanted to say that that's not where this is. What I'm trying to do, partly, yes, play does, I think, some relationship repair. And if that's all a person was able to do as far as where they could get play going, just in the house only, if that's where their boundary set, or they don't know how to get past it, they maybe can't get the coaching or whatever reason, it would still function in that way, I believe, and it would still do a lot of good. But I do apply it actually to specific behavior issues that dogs are having. I take the play that has been established in the house and use it in other environments to support what I call look and dismiss. It's distinct from the other forms of looking behaviors that we have as therapies in our industry. And what I have people do is take their play and bring it to their safest place that's not in the house. So just in their potty yard, or just somewhere they always go. That is guaranteed to be trigger free and distraction light. So the distractions would be on the order of the wind blew, or, I kind of hear something in the distance, or there are smells around, but nothing in particular that's super interesting, not squirrels, not a bustling environment. And what you're doing there is you're seeing that play will break. You're not the interesting thing anymore. And play kind of sort of goes away as intended. And you're going to sit there on a blanket with a leash so that they can't just go and do anything they want. They are in a session with you, but you're going to be patient and wait. And it may take quite a few sessions even. Sometimes it's 1 or 2, sometimes it's a whole week or 2 weeks, depending on the dog. And you'll be there on your little, set up picnic blanket. And you'll learn that dogs have a rhythm of listening to or smelling out or, attending to what's interesting to them and what they have questions about or want to think about. And when they're done with that, they are back to looking at you or thinking about what you might want to do. And that rhythm of following their interest tells you a lot about how they're feeling, about where they are. So your play is establishing that they're okay to control their own attention and take it off the things of the environment and choose you without you prompting it. That tells you as a trainer that you're in a good place to be making these new associations, to have your dog making them all by themselves, in fact. And it's a bit of a trainer check, if you will, that says, can I keep going or not? Is my play intact or not? And is my dog happy to be here or not? Because happy it's a relative term, but relaxed, safe feeling dogs will play with you. And dogs who are not feeling very safe, the play is off the table. They don't do it. And so what it's doing is it's tuning you as a trainer to watch your dog's looking behaviors, to see what they do when they're interested in something and how they disconnect when they're done being interested and no longer have questions. If a sound happens in the next yard, a dog's going to stop playing and go listen to it. It's going to stop, put you on pause and go watch it or listen for it. And when they're done with their curiosity, they'll be like, oh, that was a branch or whatever, and go, oh, anyway, back to what we were doing, Mom, let's play again. That is controlled by them, not by you. And watching that in distraction-free or distraction light, trigger-free environments gives you so much information. Plus your dog gets very used to following their curiosity, dismissing it,
yeah,
and returning on their own back to what you were doing. And that framework, that ability to do that, practiced on inconsequential distractions, is a habit that carries them through in these sessions for when a trigger is placed in the environment that's far away, it's under threshold, and you watch your dog look at it and dismiss it and come back to play with you in the same way they were doing with leaves blowing and some noise in the distance. It's the play calibrates you to make sure that the session can keep going, and it keeps them in an emotional place of I feel safe and happy, I feel pretty good. And it reassures you as a trainer that you can keep going threshold wise, which I don't think we do necessarily a great job of always monitoring accurately enough, at least in my opinion right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that for two reasons. Well, so many reasons, but one, because I love that it's operating within a framework of the dog just sort of existing. Like we're not like you said, they're watching, they're tending to something, they're disengaging, and then they're re-engaging with you. We're not constantly asking them to do that, right? We're not constantly almost micromanaging their experience with the world. And so I appreciate it for that reason. I also so appreciate it for the threshold reason, right? Because it is such a fine line. I've had a few people on this podcast to talk about threshold, and Sarah, your colleague and friend, being one of them, to really define gosh, who is this dog under threshold, right? And who is this dog at what I say is at threshold, we're sort of approaching, and then we're over threshold, we're it's a hot mess at that point, right? And so it's such a great way to not rely on, well, he's still taking food. It's but everything about his body language is really over threshold, right? And I appreciate that you're using it in that way, because you're right. Play is it's a really easy yes or no. We're over threshold, we're not over threshold.
Well, it's a fragile behavior is how I conceive of it. It's an incredibly fragile behavior. If you play with a ball or play with tug, you have a chance of having a completely robust behavior, a non-fragile behavior. A dog might play fetch or tug under all sorts of emotional pressure.
We see the dogs at the dog park that are
they're obsessing on their balls,
obsessing with the ball.
Yeah. And I certainly am not saying every dog, but it's possible, right? It's not a very good threshold measure, because many dogs will go through all sorts of adversity to get there, to get to that reinforcer. And we all know dogs who can eat all the time when they feel terrible, when they feel pretty terrible, they're still going to eat. So it doesn't make a really great threshold test. And I know we're beyond that now as modern trainers. We used to be taught that as long as they're eating, they're under threshold. I don't think that's officially taught, or it shouldn't be anymore. It's very common to understand that's not enough. But then the question is, well, what is enough, and what is under threshold? And what is my line? Is it intuition all the time? Every trainer just has a sense of when a dog is under threshold. And I think more and more of us are coming out with threshold tests and ready to work tests, and ask your dog a lot of questions to make sure they're in a place where they're learning or capable of learning what you'd like to teach them, or what the environment's going to show them. They're going to take that in a way that you want or support. And my version of that is that play is fragile. And if you have a good habit of play, you've developed it well, your dog can play in a variety of situations that are low pressure, low fear, they're not afraid of the environment, they're not worried about where they are, and they can play very easily. And then they can't play around, and by around, I mean like with a trigger in the distance. You have some information about what that trigger changed in them. The presence of that trigger changed something for your dog. You've got information. And when that play disappears, you're, as far as I'm concerned, over threshold for this work. You're over a therapeutic threshold. It doesn't mean you're over all thresholds. Threshold is a moving target. Threshold just means a border between one state and another state. It doesn't mean you can't do anything at that point. It's a piece of information. But for me, that's over what I call the one-step threshold. So if 0 means you have no concerns, your safety is ensured, you feel fine, and you're somewhere where you feel everything is okay. And then you take one step away from that, like you start to have a question about whether that's true. You have a curiosity, but it's like, I need to settle something before I can get back to what I was doing, because I have a question about what's over there in across the field. Or, a car door opened up while we were doing some work, and now I need to see that everything's okay. They have a question. And that's as far as I want to go. If you start to tell me that you have more than a question, I'm ready to end this, because I don't need you feeling unsafe. And play tells me how you're feeling. If you take one step away from feeling okay and you have a curiosity and you look at it, dog, and you sort out the questions you had, you get your answers and you put it away and say, yep, that's fine. I looked and that's okay with me. And now I'm back to what we were doing. You took one step away, and then you came back to 0. If you took one step away and then 2 steps away, and then you start like, I don't know about this guy, and I don't know what he's doing over there, we're not getting back to 0. We're not getting back to play. Play will not come back, because food might stay. Food will definitely stay past 1 step for most of the vast majority of dogs, but play will not. And when play disappears, I've got my canary, right? I've got my indication that we've got a problem. And then I can take different actions. I'm not telling a trainer what action to take at that point, but I don't think right then you're going to get a lot of positive emotional change coming from the dog just feeling safe again. I think you have to shift what you're doing at the very least, and maybe, and maybe end a session, just depending on so many variables. I couldn't tell you, but it keeps me honest. It keeps me saying, are you sure you're okay? Am I sure you're okay, dog? Because your play went away and it is not coming back. I keep asking you, like, you sure you want to play with me? And they're like, nah, I don't think so. I don't want to do that anymore. And so I get a lot more information than I used to have when food was my main measure, or when body language, looking at their body, was the main measure. Because at this point, when they're only 1 step away and they're curious and then starting to feel like, I don't know if I want to play, their bodies essentially look the same as they did before. It's in their interactive behavior with me that I can judge how they're feeling best. Show me that you can laugh. Show me that you're relaxed with your body. Show me that your silliness is there, that when I'm like going to get you, you sparkle. Show me that. I'll know you feel okay. If that's gone and all you want is like sits and downs, and you want the self-medicating properties, the coping strategies that we have otherwise, I know you're in trouble and it's time for me to go. And that keeps me in that place.
Yeah, no, I love that so much. And I'm thinking about like how often clients are in a place where they're just managing, like they're implementing their management strategy because they have to, right? Because their dog is over threshold or going over threshold or has a few too many questions, like you mentioned. I love how you phrase that. And they need to step in and help refocus the dog in some capacity, but they hit a ceiling with that, right? Because again, they have to, like if that's how they're practicing often in their walks, then they're just implementing a management strategy, which again, management is key. And I know that you teach an amazing course on
that's why I have a management strategy. It is exactly for that reason that you're saying.
Yeah. It's like, we need that, but is the therapeutic, like, is the therapy happening in that moment? Most likely not, because
most likely not
just managing and doing damage control, right?
And you're the one deciding how much they can look. Now, if you have to tell your dog how much they can look at something, you have an opinion about that. It's probably because if you had let an elongated look happen, you would have massively stressed out your dog, or your dog would have showed a, a display of behavior, right? And so you interrupt it, or you teach them, think about interrupting yourself now for a cookie, and you teach them to self-interrupt, because to let them look would not work. And that alone tells me, if I have to manage what you're looking at, I'm in management. I'm in management because I can't let you look because it's too stressful. And before we had the big distances that Grisha first suggested that we try, the really big distances, before that, we could only afford about a 2-second rule of them looking before we had to interrupt, because we were pretty close. Because we were too close. We were over threshold in a manner of speaking, too close. And so we need to interrupt them. And that's well and good if you have to be that close to things, and dogs can't look openly at the thing that's present. We have to take over. We have to do something else, help them cope, or employ a strategy and directly tell them and directly teach them how to do these things. But that's different from, hey, look all you want. Look all you want. Look as much as you'd like, and answer every curiosity that comes up for you, because I know we're in a safe distance to let you do that. I don't have to interrupt you, because I know however long you look, you're not going to keep mounting a stress response, and you're not going to start to blow or act in your defense or tell it to go away or whatever they're doing. Because I've picked a distance that I know that's true of on purpose. I did a setup. I know how far away that thing has to be for you to safely look at it openly. And now, great, I've set it up. Now, please go do that. And I will be using play as my barometer that I did pick correctly, that you still agree with me, dog, that this is a far enough distance. And if things start to change, maybe that trigger changed, maybe things outside of my understanding changed. But the play is going away. Now I have a measure. Now I can say, as a trainer, thought I did it well, think I'm under threshold, dog seems to be under threshold. Wait a minute, what's happening to play? It's slowly disappearing over the course of this time that I already got. Oh, maybe I wasn't so sure. Maybe this is harder than I thought it was. Okay, dog, thank you for that feedback. I'm going to set this up differently tomorrow or whatever day. So play keeps me not telling myself I did a good job. Play gives me that feedback. And trainers or people, we just want to think we did okay. And we're not used to the subtle changes in the dog that tells us that it wasn't so easy. So I want to take away all my crutches. I want to take away all my scaffolding. I want to take away everything that might hide from me the idea that I didn't pick well, or that my dog isn't okay. I want to take all of the things away that my dog might use to cope. Which, if that's the only soundbite you're hearing, you're going to think that's quite cruel. I'm going to take away all the things my dog might use to cope, to prove to myself that my dog is not in a place where he has to cope. It shows me that everything is fine. If you take away everything else I might use and the dog is still okay, then I know we're okay. Now I can disturb that environment slightly and say, are you still okay? Oh, no, you're not. Great. That was too big of a disturbance. Let me start slower. And it's very much a go slow to go fast, because once you get all those little elements right, it's not going to be tiny shades of change all the way up. Dogs then, from that point, in my experience, massively start shifting. They're investigating their own safety. They're not listening to whether I am trying to tell them it's okay or what they should be doing. We're not coping. They are going forward. And I didn't expect it. It's why I say play is magic. It's because I did not expect that that's how behavior change would go, but I just keep seeing it over and over and over and over with teams. So getting underneath that threshold, me defining threshold conservatively, really conservatively, I take everything away and I say, make sure they're safe and without any help from you. That seems to make so much of a difference that I call that therapeutic threshold, and I want people way under it. And anything outside of that needs your help, I'm saying that's in the management realm, and management's therapeutic. You can still get a lot of behavior change that way, but it's not the same. It's not the same thing. And that's what makes me so excited about this, finding that out and kind of putting a finer point on these things.
I love that. I love that you say play is fragile. Like that.
Oh, it's so fragile. I want the most fragile behavior you've got. And if for you it's food, if that's the thing that disappears and play does not, then you're using food to determine your therapeutic threshold. It's not that it has to be play. It's that I find play is the most fragile.
Yeah.
It disappears like smoke. It goes away. They don't want to do it if they have a question. They want to do it.
Yeah.
And for you too, could you laugh? Could you truly be involved in banter and like silliness and being
No.
ridiculous if you were just not sure about that guy over there and what was going on?
Yeah.
Not really.
Not really.
It's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Well, you mentioned a class, right? So can you tell our listeners about your classes?
Yeah, I teach this in a class at the Fenzi Dog Sports Academy. The class is called Dealing with the Boogeyman, the Playway. It's my signature Playway class. And it is where this approach got developed. It's the incubator in which I was using to figure this all out. So, people came, and at first I was using my regular methods kind of we're all familiar with. And I started to slowly incorporate play into that. And then like, wow, I'm going to incorporate more play, and wow, even more play, because what?
Super
so
cool.
That's the class where I had the space and the time and the freedom to develop that. And so that's where it still is. And that's where people can come and get that coaching. That class runs 3 times a year. So the next one's in April. So it's April, August, and December, I want to say. Yeah.
Okay.
And that one runs for 6 weeks. There's 3 levels, but don't stress. All of you listening, don't put off taking it if you didn't get gold, if you didn't get one of the really hard to get 12 gold spots, because it absolutely is accessible at just watching the class. If you read everything I'm saying and watch the videos that come up, I swear to you, it's accessible at bronze. Never put it off because you can't get gold, because it's very hard to get those. And I don't intend for that class to be only accessible if you get my direct attention in a gold spot. So please take it at whatever level you can get in and start to play with your dog. And even if you're not in the class, read any of the free stuff, listen to this, and start to play with your dog, class or no class, because the magic starts to come in and sink roots if you're really trying. And the piece isn't about the coaching. The piece is about your listening and you're slowing down.
Yeah.
And staying in a place that allows play to come up, letting the intimacy develop. It's not a skill like clicker training. I'm not going to teach you where to put your hand and how to move your body. I'm going to keep encouraging you to slow down and listen. So I know people can do that on their own, because I've just seen it too much already. So the class does come around, but don't hesitate. Start playing now, so that you can start that ball rolling, because it does take a bit to grow, to grow that beginning plant, little seed.
Yeah. I love it, because all of the things that you're talking about are just amazing skills that we can use in all relationships, right? Like slow down with ourselves, slow down with our loved one. I mean,
listen to their perspective.
Yes, like
respond to them, not to what you already were planning to say.
Exactly. It's right? Just such a and I love the word incubator, right? It like you can, I mean, a lot of us can drop in more effectively with our dogs, right? Like there's more empathy there, right? And so, gosh, like what a safe space for you to try on these skills.
Yeah, just your living room, just the floor, just you and your dog. Just make each other laugh. I don't care how you do it. Make your dog laugh and do it in a way that's sustainable and safe for your body, right? Because sometimes some laughter is going to be too much for you to take. So the rule is nobody hurts anybody. Everybody, enjoys it. And there's laughter. And I don't care if you don't know how to define that. You tell me you think your dog's laughing about what just happened. I'm going to say, okay, that's great. Both of you, I want to see you enjoy it. You think it's ridiculous. You're laughing or enjoying each other in some way. And you've kind of forgotten what you were supposed to have done. You just kind of both enjoyed it. Good enough. That's going to be good enough for quite a long time, even if you don't learn even how to apply it in setups with the technicality of it. If you play on your living room floor, I think you're going to see a whole lot. And what I want people to do is tag me in that. If you're on Instagram, please tag me in your attempts at these things, because you'll see that so many people are trying, and there's a commonality amongst all of you learning to play. So please put it out there. Yeah.
Awesome. We will link to all of that in the show notes, but thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you.
The opportunity to talk about play, I will never pass it up. I'm super passionate about it, but also I just feel like it's a thing we all create together. This is a thing that is not mine, right? Play is what we are as a social species. And I want us all to really be thinking about how to just slow down and be ridiculous. And so thank you for the chance to slow down and be ridiculous. And thank you for the chance to talk about it. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.